recording. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. All right, so this is actually something you actually encounter a lot, what rates, and really just a rate is nothing more than a ratio of two quantities. That's all that a rate is. We like to write it as a fraction, you know, a number over another. I mean, ratios, you could do that in general. So we like to express rates as fractions. In particular, you might have seen unit rates. A unit rate is when the denominator is 1. You actually haven't counted this. You know, if you're driving somewhere and you see a speed limit sign, right? You know, 20 miles per hour. That's actually a rate, 20 miles per hour. It's actually a unit rate because the denominator is 1, right? 1 hour. You might see it in the store where if you're trying to buy something, you might, you know, like fruit or something, it might say, you know, $2 per pound. That's a rate. That's a rate. So this is, again, one example. We usually write it as a fraction, but as I really just said in words, you might see this per something else. Okay? And we can actually use this, right? For instance, to determine, you know, how far we traveled, right? I mean, what does it really mean to say we're driving 25 miles per hour, right? What does that mean? Well, at that speed, for each hour we're driving, we have gone a distance of 25 miles. That's what that means, right? You know, so after 1 hour, we traveled 25 miles. Another hour goes by, we went another 25 miles, assuming, again, our speed is constant. So in total, in that case, we would have gone 50 miles because we drove 2 hours. And again, this is a unit rate because we're dividing by 1 hour. Okay. All right. And you can also invert, okay, not yet, but here's another example. Like if you're in a store, let's say buying something, there might be, you know, the cost might be $2 per pound, right? It's the same idea. For every pound of fruit, let's say it's like, I don't know, fruit. For every pound of fruit, it's going to cost you $2. So it's the same idea. And you could actually invert a rate, that is, you can flip it. So for instance, from 25 miles per hour, we can get another rate here, 1 hour per 25 miles. Okay. You'll see in the examples we do today, you will want to invert a rate. Notice you don't have a unit rate anymore because the denominator, it's not 1 mile, it's 25 miles. So it's just another example. Okay. Good. All right, so anyway, generally what's going to happen, as we did with unit conversions, you're going to multiply to eliminate one of the units, as you'll see in some examples we do. For instance, let's suppose I'm driving and my car, somehow I know I can drive 300 miles on 20 gallons. I'm not saying it's realistic. I'm just, you know, we're just making up an example. Okay, so this is what we're given. And the first thing we want to do is we want to express this as a unit rate. Notice we do have a rate here, don't we? 300 miles on a tank of 20 gallons, right? Well, as a rate, we get this. Again, it's just a fraction. Now, if I wanted to make this as a unit rate, what do I have to do? Essentially, I have to eliminate that denominator. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I have to eliminate the 20 and make it a 1. How are you going to do that? Well, we can simplify. Right? For instance, 300 is the same as 15 times 20, right? 300 is the same as 15 times 20. Now, how does that help us? Well, because now the 20s cancel. And so the rate we get is 15 miles per gallon. This is a unit rate. And this tells us how many miles we're getting per gallon of gasoline, of course. So now we have a unit rate. So again, we started with a rate, we factored and canceled common factors, did some basic algebra to get a unit rate. Now, what we can do is figure out, number 2, how far can I drive on 35 gallons? So let's say somehow, I have 35 gallons of gasoline in my car. The question is, how many miles can I drive? Okay, assuming I have this rate, 15 miles per gallon. Okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to multiply. It's kind of like when we dealt with the factor label method, right? Remember, we multiply and units cancel. That's exactly what's going to happen here. If you multiply, right, as you can see, now how's this going to help us? Well, the unit gallon is going to cancel. I know here we have gallons, but it's still going to cancel with gallon. As you can see, they're canceling. And because they're canceling, what do we get? We get 15 times 35 miles, which is 525 miles. So in other words, assuming my car is moving at the same rate, I can get 300 miles on a tank of 20 gallons, or as a unit rate, 15 miles per gallon. On 35 gallons, I can drive 525 miles. Again, we're just multiplying because the units cancel. Now, if for some reason, let's say question 1 was not here, you can use this rate to answer the question. And it's still the same process. You would multiply by 35 gallons. And that's what I'm doing here. So again, if we didn't have the unit rate, you can still solve the problem by multiplying. I mean, yeah, the numbers are bigger, so it might be a little more complicated, but the idea is the same. Because the unit gallons cancel. And what are we left with? We're left with 300 over 20 times 35.